The annual conference of the parties to the UN Climate Change Convention, this one is known as COP26. It is a particularly important conference for those of us who are concerned with climate mobility. That is the migration, displacement, and planned relocation of people because of the impacts of climate change. Prior COPs have been important avenues for gaining attention to climate change mobility. The 2010 conference in Mexico outlined these three forms of mobility that I just mentioned. Anticipatory migration for people who believe that the effects of climate change will worsen and have greater impact on them. Displacement, a reactive process to already experienced hazards and disasters. And planned relocation, a proactive attempt to move people to safer locations because of the deteriorating environment within their own communities. COP26 holds the promise for making even more changes in the way in which the international community responds to climate change mobility. It comes just a few days after the White House released its report on climate change and migration, in which it noted that there are both international and human security implications to climate change that may make it inevitable for a segment of population to move as a result of these declining situations. The most likely forms of mobility will be within countries as people move from drought-affected areas to perhaps cities in which there are greater economic opportunities. The World Bank recently released a report that indicates that these movements, though, aren't inevitable, that with better planning, with greater mitigation of the impacts of climate change by reducing global warming, and by providing avenues by which people can move at their own time to their places of their own choice through legal pathways, we might be able to see migration become an adaptation strategy for millions of people who would otherwise be facing awful circumstances at home. So COP26 is very important, but it has to start accomplishing more concrete proposals for increasing the global cooperation to manage climate change and also to manage the migration that may result from it, to find and identify and to put in place programs that will help people build resilience at home so that they don't need to move as climate change worsens, but also to establish country by country basis, regional agreements, international agreements for safe, orderly, and regular migration pathways, both within countries that are experiencing adverse effects of climate change, but also to deal with cross-border movements from these same effects. Great hopes that things will be accomplished in COP with regard to both mitigation and adaptation, but only time will tell.